Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the President of the United Arab Emirates, will be the next guest, another special invitee, invited by Prime Minister Modi for the big Indian G20. He's been president since May 2022.
We often forget, in 2015, Prime Minister Modi became the first Indian Prime Minister to visit the UAE in 34 years. And since then, he's visited there almost half a dozen times. Quite remarkable, the outreach between India and the United Arab Emirates.
There's one MBS and there's MBZ, Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the UAE, ruler of Abu Dhabi. Sheikh Mohammed is the third son of Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, was the first president of the UAE and ruler of Abu Dhabi. He's considered the most powerful Arab ruler, one of the most powerful people on the earth, voted by many international magazines.
And you can see the warmth because it's been built over the last several years. I think the Prime Minister, on his return from Paris, was again in UAE on an official visit.
Again, we were discussing Saudi Arabia. This too, one of the big achievements of the Modi government.
That's right, and you've got there,
UAE away from Pakistan's
you've got a trade agreement in place. You've got extradition agreements in place. This is a country with which India has built, and the large Indian diaspora. I mean, you cannot miss India's outreach to the UAE without looking at how UAE has also embraced India and Indian immigrants over the years.
All the 9 invited country heads have arrived. Now, one by one, the G20 country heads will arrive. So first you had the international bodies, then you've got the invited leaders, and now one by one, the G20 country heads will start arriving at the Bharat Mandapam. It's going at a fast clip, so they're not being they're not being.
So you start with the multilaterals, then you go to the 9 invitee countries. And then you have the 20 countries. I mean, you've had the African Union, you've had countries like Singapore, you've had UAE, and you've had the heads of WTO, World Bank, IMF, ILO, WHO, and now you get the, presumably, one by one, the 20 countries of the G20.
Her Excellency,
this is the
Ms.
Economy Minister of Mexico,
Minister
Sanchez.
of the Economy
Remember,
of
the Mexican
United
president has decided
States.
he will not travel, so 2018 onwards he hasn't traveled internationally. So this is the first G20 member country. Remember, Emmanuel Macron is not here, so it's G19 just at this moment. This is the Mexican Minister of Economy, and the interesting thing is data that just came out this week shows that Mexico is now the largest exporter to the US, showing how fast there is a, not a decoupling, but how dependence on China is coming down. China is now being overtaken by Mexico when it comes to exporting to the United States. That's the Economy Minister of Mexico on your screen right now, Raquel Sanchez. I like how they have these intercuts with a jib and they've got tracks. Their production is quite high quality.
If you saw yesterday when Prime Minister Modi and US President met, there was a slow-mo camera which sort of had different angles. Presumably it was a 4 to 6 camera setup because you had different angles. Again, very well packaged, and the images were perfect. As you're seeing these images, I mean, this is purely in terms of the manner in which this is being presented to the world, it's as good as it gets.
And you've got millions of people beyond Delhi. You know, when we're stuck here in Delhi, we tend to be Delhi-centric. And we think that this is happening in our backyard, so we're familiar with it. But we also have to remember that millions of people watching India today across the country right now.
No, and all these intercuts really look nice, you know. Remember, when we saw the first time when Dr. Manmohan Singh had gone the French Bastille Day celebration, you saw how they had cameras on planes, they had jibs, they had tracks. It just makes everything look stunning. Look at that Nataraj statue there, looking so glorious. It's much better to have things moving rather than just having like a blank shot waiting for the car to come in. So this is actually just a much better way of doing it.
It's also immersive, right? Because, you know, people watching from different parts of the world and the country getting to experience it firsthand in this way, keep it moving. All of these flags on the outside, the building itself. Remember that the Pragati Maidan, which has been upgraded into the Bharat Mandapam, is something we are familiar. People who live in the national capital are familiar with. People on the outside have very little idea about what a big deal this actually is. So every little movement, every little slow-mo camera. The packaging, as Rajdeep put it, is in my view really important because it gives citizens, viewers, stakeholders in India across the world, and I'm sure a lot of diaspora also watching this very carefully, a real immersive sense, you know, first-hand kind of sense. And second best to a ringside view.
And Shiv, in a way, if you look at the transition of Pragati Maidan to Bharat Mandapam, Pragati Maidan, 1972, 25 years of Indian independence, Indira Gandhi, whose political playbook the Prime Minister at times is seen to have borrowed from. You know, it was on the eve of the International Trade Fair, which was called Asia 72. So from 1972, where, you know, it was very much a very, it wasn't a monument that you sort of visited to see its sort of architectural splendor. It was very functional. From there you move to Bharat Mandapam, which, you know, is a way of transition from that very basic structure that the Pragati Maidan had in 1972, which we all thought was a big deal at the time, to where we've reached today in 2023, 75 years of independence. So India at 25 versus India at 75. You know, look at those images and compare them to the images that you had during the Pragati Maidan.
We actually did that a few days ago.
It's a huge transition.
Yeah, and they've got very expensive plans for how the Bharat Mandapam will be used. We tried to make some bookings for some of our events, and it's quite packed out. And in fact, the ITPO is also a profit-making body, so it's not just run, you know, as a government organization would be. It's run for profit, and Piyush Goyal was telling me that they intend to take this public, if they can, to the stock markets, and they're contemplating a listing as well.
You know, that if Piyush Goyal does that, it again will reflect how much we've changed. You know, from this sort of old government
His Excellency
Pragati Maidan organization, if they can open it up to the world.
Of Argentina.
This is the Argentinian President Alberto Fernandez. Had special requests. He ate food at the Imperial, went around to the Lodi Garden for a walk as well. So he and his delegation have been a bit out and about in the national capital. Won the presidential election in 2019 when he defeated the incumbent Mauricio Macri. He's been dealing with different issues in Argentina, one of the most important countries of South America, born in Buenos Aires. Alberto Fernandez has been in politics since the 1980s. Prime Minister Modi seems to be in a bit of hurry to keep it moving, so he's keeping things. Rajiv Dogra is here with us. He's jaldi karo, jaldi karo, jaldi karo. He doesn't want to pile up there.